concept of what you were trying to do? Are you working in stone?
I'm planning to work in metal.
Okay, that's great.
I have a concept, but John told me early on, I could tell there was sort of a laugh in the email, that people rarely actually make what they plan to make. When they came here, they always change their mind, so we'll see if that holds.
I'd like to introduce Carole Turner. She's an American, but lives in Turkey most of the time. I met Carole in Vietnam 10 years ago, wasn't it?
11.
11 years. You can count
I was
better
just
than I
counting.
can. Yeah. And I watched her work through the years, and I just felt that it was very applicable that she be invited to this particular symposium, because it relates to perspective and perception and how you perceive things and how you can share that kind of insight with others. And at this point, I'll let you do the talking. Thank you.
So thank you, John and Paul, for inviting, and everyone for inviting me here. I'm very happy to be here. Big history here, actually. That was my very first symposium in 2005.
You never forget the first time.
No, and there were 65 artists there, I think,
No,
and more assistants. It was a village.
It was terrible.
But it was, yeah, we suffered through it, right?
Yeah.
5 weeks. And it was the very first time I had ever touched stone. I'd never made stone sculpture before. I worked in bronze in Portland. I'm from Portland. I live in Istanbul for some years now. But, and I'd worked in cement for big sculptures, and they had told me that I could do a cement sculpture. I'd never even heard of symposiums before then, actually. A Canadian artist had contacted me about it. And about 3 days before I was to leave, they said, no, we're not doing any cement, everyone's doing stone. What? I didn't have any tools, nothing. So that sculpture's not on there, but that was the first time I had ever even thought about carving a stone. I mean, I thought maybe I would do it many years later, but certainly not then. So, but with John and the other experienced artists there, I learned a lot from that symposium. I didn't apply it to that symposium so much, but and from the assistants even. So each time is a learning experience, and I seek to learn each symposium. So I will be learning from you too this time also. So this was actually from my second symposium. That was in Poland.
Oh, Poland?
Yes. Oh, Poland, yes. And that was the first time that I didn't have an assistant. And my stone arrived upside down. It had to be that dimension, and they couldn't move it for like, I don't know, 10 days or something, so I had to start carving it upside down. Can you imagine? Now I would have said, come on, let's get it right there. But anyway, that's evidently I don't even have to touch it.
Yeah.
That's Lullaby Polonaise. It's supposed to be a mother and baby, but other people think that's something else. So, this is in Romania a few years ago. That's in Korea. That's basalt, harder than granite.
Wow.
And this is what's the first word? The line between us. What was it? Oh, now I've forgotten. Together. Together, the line between us? Oh, that's terrible. I've forgotten. But this was deemed to be an undesirable stone. We were on a quarry. It's I don't know, maybe 4 meters total, but
Okay.
it's there was a white line that went through, and that was a faulty stone. It was, don't have that stone, but I wanted it. And I had just watched something on television while I was there about reunions between North and South Korea, a mother and her older son who'd been separated for so many years. It was just really got to me, and so there's a white line that ties them, that goes around both of the figures, and there's a chair in front of each, which is representing the governments, the politics that are separating them. There's a line between, there's a space between them too.
So that was the best stone.
It was the best stone.
Yeah.
I really had to fight to let me use
They
that
don't
stone.
do it.
They absolutely did not want to take that off of the mountain for me. But this one's in China. Looks very tiny, but that's about 3 meters of granite.
Wow.
And this one is my first and only, actually, for large size wood sculpture.
I was surprised to see that.
Yeah, I was surprised to be there.
Where was
And-
that?
That was in Austria.
Oh, okay. Austria had a lot of trees too.
Yes, yes. And Oregon has a lot of trees. My father is an engineer he designs and manufactures lumber handling machinery my whole life. I should be carving. He did not understand why I'm not using wood that he could get for me at any time, from anyone. He did not understand why I never carved wood. So, anyway, thank you all for
Thank you
having
for
me.
sharing.
Looking forward to the next time.
We're here with visiting artist Carole Turner, a native of Portland, Oregon, and international sculptor. You've been around the globe-trotting, leaving sculptures here and there.
Quite a few places, yeah.
And how did you become aware of the symposium here at Andre's Institute?
I met John Weideman, the director, 11 years ago at my very first symposium in Vietnam.
Oh, no kidding.
Right. And so he had talked about this project and then some other things he was working on, and so I kind of followed it a little bit after that, and we've stayed in touch. And
this is is this the first one you've participated in?
yes.
Oh, very good. I noticed in looking at your website, Carole with an E, Turner.com.
Thank you.
Your forms and figures. And I was struck by the images that you posted where your forms are mostly feminine, smooth, curvaceous, and kind of a bit contemplative. And then your forms having more texture or geometry and that. Is that a conscious effort, or is that just what comes out as being an artist?
It was not a conscious effort, but my forms, I've always made those, the figures, very fat. I like to make rolls, and I started out working in bronze. So it was clay to bronze, so it worked very well with that. And I've made a number of them in very large stone also, but that is much more difficult because it takes a lot more time to get all of the rounding done. So often for public work I do more geometric shapes, especially in countries where figurative work is not welcome.
Oh, I was going to ask you that, if you have a kind of direction when you get a commission for a public piece. Are you restricted in some way, or do you feel like you can put anything in a space?
Often there's a theme. If it's a symposium, if it's not, you ask questions, and sometimes you already know the answers, that some things would not be as appreciated. So that's fine, because my sculptures, whether it's figurative or the forms, it's about the journey through life, or transformation and memory. A lot of are about memory, so I can express that in either way, and they all have sort of a wandering, whether the contemplative forms or figures, or the forms that, like the last one I did was in Greece, in Crete, in July, and that was, I think you've seen my dream clouds.
Yes.
The big circles. These were similar. It was a climbing, a rising configuration that were actually time capsules. So again, about memory.
Okay, yeah. That's kind of the theme and perspective of the piece we're doing now, with the communication the TV sets or monitors, or how we get our information from our memories. Roll that tape, you know, and what you're putting inside the boxes. I particularly like the fact that it's kind of technology in a natural environment. I think that's contemplative in itself, and having that message of communication once again.
And those are actually part of a group of sculptures that I'm doing, or have been doing for the past several years, but I'm working on for an exhibition. The first ones I did were those tapes, the same strips of black metal tapes that are inside the screens on these televisions, but they form the entire figures. And these are very big figures that I've done in Istanbul, and ones that were smaller I've had on exhibition in China a few years ago. And those are all of the voices and images you see in your head, whether it's, you know, from television, from your youth, or recently, or voices of your mother, or things that just sort of form who you are. I mean, intentionally there were no structure at all in those figures, which made it a little more difficult to wind all of these tapes around, but I wanted it to be that the people were formed solely from what you hear and experience, the things that stay with you, that kind of recalibrate your image of yourself, and whether it's wanted or not.
Yeah, what a great,
they keep
great
popping
message.
up. And so,
go ahead.
and so the televisions they're a metaphor for all of those voices, not just the ones that you see in the media, but also, again, it can be your colleagues, your mother, your professors, anyone. Those voices that stay, and, you know, that really affect who you think you are.
Well, very good message.
And actually, my sculpture in Greece was called Who We Thought We Were, because what you put in those time capsules, you think that represents who you were, and, you know, years later, you wouldn't think that's who you were on that.
Yeah,
even at that point, even let alone today.
Because we all have a mask of who we think we are, and then it's already wrapped around us who we really are.
Right.
What a great message. Do you always work in sculpture? Have you done drawing or painting? Or is your background strictly coming from sculpture?
I do mostly sculpture, for sure, but I also paint and sometimes draw, but mostly sculpture and painting.
So you like the three-dimensional aspect. We were talking earlier about how every side of three-dimensional has to have a cohesive message all around the piece. A definite challenge you don't have with two-dimensional drawing or painting.
True, but I always tried to make my paintings look three-dimensional. So it's much easier to just start in sculpture. I make my sketches in small clay, so to try to get that feeling, that message all the way around.
And balance. I've seen examples on your website of your towers, like the piece you're making here, where they're all kind of like almost tipping over, and that anticipation or anxiety that you have. You see that tension in your piece, and yet it's perfectly balanced.
And it writes itself, or it's again, the journey.
So that's an intentional piece of your work, and part of your theme. Yes. Is the journey from the bottom to the top, or just the journey of being secure?
I've made a series of passages that were really about a journey. So the theme kind of flows through other works of mine also, but doors representing decisions you make, how they affect your life, how if you had done this, if you had done that, and that's the same type of thing when it goes up, like things that happen, or in this case, that you hear or see, that alters
the doors you speak of. Those are the ones that kind of nest among themselves. Yes. I saw that as you turn, as the viewer participates in that sculpture, the view is kind of framed, and everybody has a different view through the same portal, if you will. I think that's a clear message, I think, to most of your people. What did you see about the site where you're going to put your piece today? Well, this week. Why did you pick the particular site? Did it have some kind of a special meaning, or did you let someone select the site?
I selected it, but we had certain areas that we were encouraged to choose amongst. And I liked the sculptures that were near it. I liked the site that I chose. I needed something elevated a little bit to be able to look up, because I didn't want to make a big base on it, but I don't want the smallest television to be too close to the ground. So, and it's sort of nestled in the trees a little bit. It goes back maybe 15 feet. So I liked that.
And what new technology have you learned? Andre's Institute really promotes taking artists out of a comfort zone, teaching them some new techniques. Where you've worked with metal before, what did you learn this time that you'll take away?
I have worked with metal that has been laser cut before, and this time I plasma cut more than 50 pieces. So I learned how to use a plasma cutter. So
That's all by hand.
Yeah, yeah.
And your bandsaw?
And there's
cutting.
a huge bandsaw there. I've used a bandsaw before, but this is gigantic. And yes, I was very careful. I had wood between me and that all along, in case my mother saw photos.
There's your tape
right.
wrapping around.
Do you want to lose a finger? That and welding, because I've tack welded with a MIG before. But, so I've used the MIG here, but also the stick welding, which is very difficult for me to do. So I have not mastered that by any means.
Can you explain the difference between the MIG welding and stick welding?
And TIG welding? No, I can't. Unfortunately, I get them all confused, but I know there's the gas, and there's this, you have an actual stick that I wish I knew what it's called, clamped to this, and you have to strike it, and it's very tricky to get at least this machine. It's a little more difficult than another one that I've used very momentarily.
Picked a very ambitious project to learn how to weld on,
and
with all those boxes.
Yeah.
And grinding down the weld to make it all smooth.
All the pieces, and I'm having help also. There are people there to weld and to grind, so that's really going to be a big help, because it's called 7. I cannot make it 4 boxes. They have to be all seven TVs have to be there.
And you chose 7 because of, you were saying marketing?
Right. There's that old rule of marketing that if you see something 7 times, whether it's on television or billboard or magazine, that the message sinks in and it becomes more authentic. You act on it or reject it or make a decision. It becomes more of a real.
I see. So that's why we have so many political commercials on TV right now. All that tape going through our head.
And I thought it was very timely because of the elections going on right now. So that's one reason I chose that for this.
Very good. So is there anything that you want to say specifically about your experience here, or anything that you'd like to share with us?
This has been a great experience. It's really been a great learning experience. People are wonderful, all of the organization, and thanks so much to Paul Andres and to John Weideman for making this happen. This is a lot of work to make this happen, and all of the people, including all the people who have brought us meals, the host families, the bingo, which is huge, raising money for this, support bingo, go down to the Big Bear Lodge, and to make more awareness for this. Thank you, because I know that a lot of people even around here have not been up here yet.
Oh, it's a hidden treasure,
yes.
Indeed. And thank you for leaving a piece of your message behind.
Thank you.
And sharing it with us.
Thank you for sharing the message with everyone. Come on up. There are almost 90 sculptures now after this.
90, wow.
Yeah, I think there were 86 before, so there'll be 89.
Wow.
Very nice paths.
Carole, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Did do one But really, our purpose was out there where the artists are working, and the artists working on something different than they've done before. Carole's not worked in metal before.
No.
So she's learning to weld, she's learning to cut. You know, she's got the plasma cutter and she's cutting out, you know, thick plates of Core 10 steel.
So it stays in place, so I can move it.
The final piece, these will be black.
Yes, but they'll be
Yeah.
covered also. Okay, just the way I wanted it, and now it's a different place.
No.
I should lay down on the floor.
strap, just hold it. All right, then we can hold it till we get it back, you know? Hold on, let me see if this works. It's pretty much where you want it, or no? There. Okay, because that's blocked. Yeah. That's good. I'm going to let the chain off a little bit, because it's on blocks now in the back. Yeah, very good. Just a little tap. Okay.
Eric, and I'm Vice President of the Andres Institute of Art. I have been participating since early 2000s. The reason I participate is an opportunity to meet artists from around the world, to understand their work and how it's moved forward in time, and to have a little piece of that work in our place here is a way that gives me something physical to hold on to these memories. The sort of purpose in the Art Institute is to have the opportunity to meet people who are making their way through their lives, not just the artists, but the fellow volunteers, and understand their perspectives on and their concerns and their joy. So, in any case, what we're going to do now is unveil another sculpture. And each sculptor that comes here comes with a theme in their heart, something that they want us to ponder a little bit and leave this physical work with us so that we might ponder it. And I know that Carole has some ideas behind this. I'll let you explain your own ideas. I know what they are, but I probably paraphrased poorly. So this is Carole, our second guest artist, Carole Turner. Thank you very much, Carole. You're up.
And this is 7. Thank you all for coming out in this drizzly weather. This sculpture is 7. This is 7 televisions with screens with tapes in it, videotapes, audio tapes wrapped around them, and the whole sculpture is actually formed of the tapes. And for this, I put the tapes inside of these televisions, and all of those tapes represent all of the voices you hear from childhood on, from your mother, from friends, teachers, and television also plays a big part in that. All of the television and advertisements that we hear changes the way we see the world, changes our perspective, the theme of the symposium, and actually makes us who we are, who we become. And there are 7 televisions because of the marketing rule of 7. If you can put something in front of someone or make them listen to something 7 times, it will sink in, it will make them act, make the viewer act or not act. And in this political season, I thought it was a really interesting thing to include also.
So,
Kevin.
let's give her a hand.
Yeah, before that, on behalf of the Andres Institute of Art, we gratefully accept this beautiful gift we leave on this mountain. We promise to take care of it and to share it with the community and encourage them to come and enjoy the art on a daily basis forevermore. The water from the quarry is be on the mountain. Not sure where the quarry is. Take the picture. I wear my garden. And then after you take the pictures, we'll move on to the next spot. So enjoy Carole, which is just over that way. So we have quite a bit of time here. Ask questions, take some photos.
Carole, have you ever worked with this before? With steel?
Yes, with steel, but I have not used plasma cutter and done my own welding before. I did not do my own welding. I tried to do my own welding, but and I special to Shut, who came and saved me today putting all of these together, and to all of the other welders who challenged me. Thank you all again.
All right, come on up, folks.
Yeah.